You were expecting an empty room, but it was me, Dio! This is a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. 2018 was a fucking dumpster fire, but we're not gonna talk about that because 2019 is gonna be just as worse. Oh, fuck.
Somewhere around the beginning of 2018 and the end of 2017, I saw a video on a YouTube channel called Austin McConnell, a wonderful YouTube channel featuring the musings of one Austin McConnell. One of those musings was a video he produced called Every Book I Read in 2017 Reviewed. I highly recommend you check out that video and the rest of Austin's channel because he's one of my favorite YouTubers. Anyway, that video gave me an idea. An awful, stupid, dumb idea. I tasked myself with the goal of making a list of every movie I watched in the year of 2018. Much to my surprise, I ended up watching 77 movies. And I'm going to talk about them, briefly. Not all of these came out in 2018, and some of these I've seen before, but I made it a goal. If I watched it in 2018, I'm going to mention it. As the famous Italian Renaissance man once said, "Here we go!" Ark. Ark is a low-budget sci-fi movie I saw on Netflix. A lot of these are going to be from Netflix. Simple in concept and honestly really well done in terms of execution. It's like Groundhog's Day with a sci-fi twist. Not spectacular, but definitely worth a watch. The Vault. The Vault is a low-budget horror thriller that for some reason has James Franco in it, and he's not even really in it all that much. I don't really know what he's doing here. Other than that confusing detail, The Vault is actually pretty solid. Bank robbers open an old vault and release a ghost from decades ago. Other than the absolutely miserable ending, the movie is surprisingly good. The main antagonist reminds me of one of the Bobbies from We Happy Few, and that's alright with me. It Comes at Night. It Comes at Night has a higher budget than Ark or The Vault, but is still a lower budgeted film, and honestly, it's one of the better movies I've seen in the year of 2018. It's a post-apocalypse film, but it's very light on the apocalypse. It's not Mad Max or The Last of Us, but that's because it's more character-driven, focused on human interaction and witnessing the effect of paranoia. Its atmosphere is dark and intense, and it takes its time. A real slow burn of a movie, but a good burn regardless. I highly recommend It Comes at Night. The Open House. Percy Jackson and his mom move into an open house to babysit it for a few months and weird shit starts to happen. I really wanted to like The Open House. I really did. But there's no two ways about it. This is a fucking bad movie. And it's the worst kind of bad movie. It's one of those movies that you can get into, it's kind of weird, but you think it's going somewhere. And then the ending happens and it leaves you sitting there going, oh, so you weren't going anywhere with all that weird shit. I might do a Marcus Rambles on this movie. Aliens. Zone of Silence. I don't fucking remember anything about this movie. I recall a scene in which a girl is sitting in the middle of nowhere in a tent, and then she gets beamed up, presumably to get probed. I like found footage movies. Even if it's bad, I'll watch it. This was absolutely horrible. Even though I can't remember the movie itself, I can recall the feeling I had while watching it, and that was maximum frustration and boredom. Gerald's Game. I'm not overly familiar with the Stephen King book that this movie is based on, but regardless, I can say I thoroughly enjoyed Gerald's Game. It's such a simple setup and premise, and I think that's why it works. A woman and her husband, in an effort to keep their love life alive, decide to go away to a cabin and play with some handcuffs. And then her husband has a heart attack. Now you fucked up! It takes a lot to make me squirm uncomfortably, and this movie did just that. Those who have seen this movie will know exactly the scene I'm talking about. The ending is kinda weird, but it doesn't ruin the movie like some say. At least it didn't for me. It's just kinda weird. Sicario. Denis Villeneuve? I think that's how you pronounce it. Denis Villeneuve is very quickly becoming a filmmaker whose work I'm always looking forwards to. Prisoners, Enemy, and Arrival are all fantastic movies, and Sicario is just as wonderful. Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro all do a fantastic job. And hey, a surprise appearance by Jon Bernthal. I think the real strength of Sicario is its ability to have some fucking balls. This movie doesn't fuck around. It shows you the extremes that go on when it comes to the war on drugs waged between America and Mexico. And at the end, Benicio del Toro does his best Solid Snake impersonation. Crimson Peak. It is a travesty that Crimson Peak is considered a failure in some people's eyes. I think marketing is partially to blame in this regard because Crimson Peak is anything but a horror movie. There are horror elements and horrific things happen, that's for sure, but it's not a horror movie. Crimson Peak is a gothic romance and murder mystery rolled into one film and executed in the visual flair that Guillermo del Toro is famous for. A beautiful movie with a haunting atmosphere. I implore you.
Beware of Crimson Peak.
Iron Man and Captain America, Heroes United. Alright, I'm gonna be honest. This wasn't very good or interesting. The only reason I watched it was because I had never heard of it before, and I saw that it had Taskmaster in it. And I love Taskmaster. It's basically just an animated Avengers kids movie with no real substance to it, which is okay, I suppose. But the most jarring thing about this movie is the animation. The frame rate on characters' mouths just don't sync up with the rest of the animation. Like, action scenes look fine, but characters' mouths moving is like 15 frames lower than the rest of the movie. I don't know, I might do a Marcus Rambles on this one. Godzilla, Planet of Monsters. Here's the thing, there are plenty of bad Godzilla movies, but even most bad Godzilla movies are enjoyable on some level. But Godzilla Planet of Monsters is just fucking terrible. Mainly because it's an absolutely mind-numbing bore fest. Which is a shame, because it has some cool ideas. It just doesn't do anything with them. I want to do a Marcus Rambles on this one too, because there's a lot to talk about in regards to this movie. Basically, humanity leaves Earth to escape Godzilla. They don't find another livable planet, so they go back to Earth, and it's evolved into a Godzilla ecosystem. It's bad. Just watch Final Wars. Bright. I know it's kind of the cool thing to hate on Bright, but, and this may surprise some of you, I liked Bright. Now, before you get extremely earth-shatteringly, unreasonably fuck-ass mad, I don't think Bright is actually all that great. I just think it's kind of neat. I want to see more done with this world. There's something here, some kind of potential for a great movie. Basically, the premise is very simple. What if fantasy creatures lived on modern-day Earth? If you liked Bright and want a better version, I would recommend Alien Nation, or try playing any of the Shadowrun games. Even then, I kind of recommend Bright. It's not good, but I found it to be enjoyable. Ghost in the Shell. 1995. I'm happy to say that I finally got around to seeing Ghost in the Shell. And I'm even happier to say that it deserves all the praise it receives. When I say making anime adaptations is pointless, it's not coming from a fan perspective, it's coming from an artist's perspective. There's something insulting about taking this gorgeous handcrafted work of art, which Ghost in the Shell is, and just say, we can do better with real people. It defeats the purpose. If they could have done it in live action, they would have done it in live action. But they didn't. They made a conscious decision to make an adult-oriented animated film. For being released in 1995, this movie is strangely relevant today with its themes and concepts. I think I like this movie more than I like Akira, in all honesty. This paved the way for future cyberpunk storytelling that is becoming weirdly popular again. The Ritual. While The Ritual isn't a spectacular movie, it certainly shows some great talent and skill in terms of its filmmaking. In essence, it's a rather standard horror movie. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Some friends go out into the woods and get stalked by something. But it's the way it's executed that really drives it home for me. In particular, there were two things that stood out to me. The depiction of nightmares and the something. Dream sequences in movies have this tendency of being not all that dreamlike, but the Ritual's dream segments are actually rather dreamlike and atmospheric. And then there's the something. I really can't honestly say anything more about it, but just, damn, that was a cool thing, and it made the movie worth seeing. The Cloverfield Paradox. You ever have that moment when you're watching something, and at first you're enjoying it, but then you very quickly realize it's horrible? That's the Cloverfield Paradox. It is a remarkably terrible movie. It's a horrible sequel to a movie that really shouldn't have any sequels, and the fact that it's the third in a series is kind of dumb. Don't get me wrong, I like Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane, but I really think 10 Cloverfield Lane really didn't need to be connected to the Cloverfield universe, a phrase that is now staining my tongue. Like, say that phrase aloud and tell me you don't feel stupider. The Cloverfield universe. The real disappointment comes from the fact that at first I was really liking the weird nature of the movie. I like movies where I'm unsure of what's going on and where it's going. In essence, the movie is about scientists trying to create unlimited energy to save Earth, and the machine they're using is causing weird shit to happen. That idea intrigues me. There's an interesting horror movie scenario to be had there. Like, Google the Large Hadron Collider experiments, and you'll get a sense of where I'm coming from. Wish Upon. Holy fucking Toledo. Wish Upon is a masterpiece of so bad it's good movie making. A girl finds a Chinese wish box that grants all of her wishes, but for a price, except not really? It's bizarre, man. It's so out of touch with reality that it ends up making the whole thing a roller coaster of hilarity. I cannot recommend Wish Upon enough. There may be a Marcus Rambles about this in the future. It's too much fun to dissect. Full Metal Alchemist. The movie. I've already said my piece about this movie. If you want to watch my videos on the Full Metal Alchemist movie, check them out. Long story short, it's fucking garbage. Mama! The short film this movie is based on is basically far superior to the theatrical version. It has its moments for sure, and some of the effects are really great, but overall it's pretty average. I know Del Toro's name is attached to this, so he must have seen something in the idea, but it probably would have been better if he directed it. It's hit and miss. I can't recommend it, but I also can't say stay away from it either. Black Panther. How is this the most controversial movie of 2018? How was this the most controversial movie of 2018? I think people need to step back and just take a deep breath, relax, chill the fuck out. Black Panther wasn't terrible, nor was it amazing. I'd say it was on par with Ant-Man, but only a little bit. I'd say Ant-Man was better just because I think the character's superpower makes for a more visually interesting film. That being said, I did like the way this movie looked. Wakanda has a cool tribal futurism vibe to it. Michael B. Jordan was awesome, as he usually is, and so was Andy Serkis. I hate Black Panther's mask in this movie. His costume Civil War is just so much cooler looking. Doom. Holy fuck, I forgot how stupid awesome this movie is. Doom the movie is absolutely dumb. Like, it's a dumb movie, but it's so much fun to watch. It's like one of the more enjoyable video game movies made. It's a good time if you put it on and watch this with your friends. You have a blast. The guns say their code names. There's a stupid first-person shooter section. The Rock turns into a demon. I can only recommend Doom. It is a stupid, fun, awesome, ridiculous movie. Kill Bill. Volume 1 and 2. I'm counting this as one movie because it technically is one movie. If you haven't seen Kill Bill, you need to correct that. Kill Bill is one of the greatest revenge action movies. Kill Bill is a live-action anime movie done correctly, and that's simply because there was no previous anime to ruin. In fact, Kill Bill could have been done as an anime movie, and it probably would have been just as highly regarded, but the fact that it's in live action and works just makes it all that much more amazing. The Hateful Eight. If it's not evident by now, I'm a pretty big Tarantino fan, and yet I hadn't gotten the opportunity to see The Hateful Eight when it came out in theaters. but I am glad that I eventually watched it because it's just magnificent. Tarantino isn't afraid of having scenes with characters doing nothing but talking. That's pretty clear by now, but I think The Hateful Eight is a prime example of this ability as a screenwriter. The first half of this movie is nothing but dialogue, and then it turns into a whodunit murder mystery. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It was bad. Look, if you liked this movie, that's perfectly fine. You got something out of it that I just didn't. But this was one of the stupidest movies I've seen in the year of 2018. This whole subverting expectations thing people like to point out is a valid opinion, but I'm of the belief that if you set something up, you should follow through with it instead of just blue-balling your audience. I absolutely want to make a Marcus Rambles about this movie, but I fear it may be too late. It's become cool to hate on this movie, which is just dumb. I don't hate The Last Jedi, I just don't think it's very good, and I didn't think The Force Awakens was all that great either. There are some good aspects to The Last Jedi, but it's not enough to make me want to see it again. Loving Vincent. Words can't do justice to the beauty that is Loving Vincent. The film follows the story of famous oil painter Vincent van Gogh, but in a way that's more than just a biography. When the movie starts, Vincent is already dead, a suicide by a gunshot to the stomach that took almost 3 days to kill him. We learn about Vincent, about his struggle with mental illness, and those whose lives he affected through the lens of the very people he had come into contact with the most. But it's the visual style and approach the movie takes that truly pays homage to Vincent's life. Every frame in this movie is a singular oil painting. The time, effort, and craft on display here is truly astonishing. Coupled with wonderful music and terrific acting, Loving Vincent is one of the best movies I saw in 2018. Captain America, First Avenger, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Thor, Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, The Avengers. Can you tell what movie I was getting amped for? I'm not going to talk about all of these in depth, but rather give an overall general thought process. The big thing I was really worried about when it came to going back and watching all the old Marvel movies that had come out over the course of the last 10 years was that I wasn't going to like them. I was 14 when Iron Man 1 first came out, starting off the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's a lifetime ago, essentially. I was worried that going through and watching the Marvel movies that were available to me, I was going to realize that they weren't as good as I remembered them being, or that my tastes in things had changed to the point where I wasn't interested in them as much as I previously was. It happens. It's a part of growing up and getting older, finding things out about yourself as you change as a person. But then I started watching them. I fucking loved them. Some more than others, but I was surprised that these movies still held up. It was also kind of fascinating watching these characters go through these events, change, come and go, team up and disband. Thor looks unrecognizable compared to when he first showed up in his first solo movie. The Captain America trilogy is still one of my favorite trilogies. Doctor Strange was still just as great as when I saw it in theaters. It was great. Avengers: Infinity War. All of that culminating into one of my favorite movie-going experiences. Me and my dad love going to see these superhero movies. He loves them just about as much as I do. And seeing all of these characters that we've come to know and love interacting with each other, it was great. I love seeing the clash of ideals and powers. But why is this considered the greatest crossover event? They're all sequels to each other. Other than that stupid marketing phrase, I greatly enjoyed Infinity War, and I look forward to seeing the conclusion of this 10-year-long experiment. Acts of Vengeance. What the fuck is Acts of Vengeance? Oh my god. Okay, I totally forgot I even saw this movie. This was weird. It's basically a direct-to-DVD action movie starring Antonio Banderas as Daredevil. He plays a lawyer whose wife and daughter are murdered, so he takes a vow of silence and trains himself to be a hardcore badass until he finds his family's killer. It's okay. I only watched it because I was visiting family and they threw it on the TV. If you have half a brain, you will instantly know who killed his wife and child, and that's all I'm gonna say. A Quiet Place. For being his first directorial debut, I think John Krasinski's first foray into the horror field was a solid one. Not perfect, mind you, but solid. The concept alone of a family trying to live in absolute silence due to an alien presence lends itself to some tense moments. I know John Krasinski has done some directing for The Office in the past, but directing for a TV show and directing for a movie are two very different things, and based on this, I can say I'm looking forward to seeing what other movies he directs. Ant-Man and the Wasp. This was so much better than the first Ant-Man. The villain was way cooler, the problem they were trying to solve was much more interesting, it was far funnier than the first one, all around it was just better. Green Room. Jeremy Saulnier's Green Room is quite frankly one of the more intense movies I saw last year. A punk rock group ends up playing for a bunch of skinheads because they need the money and end up seeing something that they shouldn't have. The tone, the atmosphere, the sheer brutality of the whole thing, it really made it stick out in my mind. Patrick Stewart portrays the leader of the neo-Nazis, and it's pretty unsettling seeing him in such a drastically uncharacteristic role. I grew up watching the X-Men movies, and I know a lot of people are familiar with him as Jean-Luc Picard, so to see him in such a sinister role of power is interesting. He's so cold and calculating. And Anton Yelchin, God rest his soul, is fantastic in it as well. My only real issue, and this isn't against the movie, it had more to do with the technical aspects of my TV, but I had to watch a lot of this with headphones on because there's a lot of muffled talking behind doors, and I just couldn't make it out. Other than that, it's a solid movie. Ex Machina. I had a lot of people over the years telling me to watch this movie. So when I had the free time, I saw it on Netflix and I was like, what the hell, that was a good time. And I greatly enjoyed Ex Machina. It went in a direction that I wasn't anticipating. If you've ever seen the movie, I'm sure you know what I mean. Oscar Isaac steals the show. His character in this is such a fucking creep. It's magnificent. Did it live up to the hype? I'd say yes. It was as good as people were saying it is, which is rare to me. The Bone Collector. Okay, so I really like mystery movies. Especially mystery movies from like the 90s to early 2000s. There's something magical about them. I can't quite explain it. So needless to say, I really like The Bone Collector. I don't think it's a good movie, but I do think it's a fairly entertaining one. Denzel Washington is basically the world's greatest detective, and he's paralyzed from the neck down. So he teams up with Angelina Jolie to hunt down a serial killer called the Bone Collector. It's beautiful. There's a great scene where the killer gets his hand caught in a machine. It's pretty well done. I'd actually recommend this one if you have an afternoon to kill. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Wow, I can't believe Fox let Tim Burton make an X-Men vs. Slender Man movie. I actually want to do a Marcus Rambles video on this thing because it's fucking weird, even for Burton. All I can say really is, I remember it. 1922. It's basically the Telltale Heart with ghosts, but it's pretty good. It helps that I greatly enjoy any movie with Thomas Jane, and I hate to say this because everyone else in this movie is pretty good acting-wise, but Thomas Jane feels like the only one trying. I would recommend this just for his performance. He plays such a dumb, ignorant brute of a human being, and he plays it with such realism and weight. The rest of the movie is pretty solid all around, too. Bullet Head. For the life of me, I can't understand why this movie is called Bullet Head. This movie feels like a film student's first major motion picture. Okay, so Rory Culkin, Adrian Brody, and John Malkovich get locked in a building with a big mean mastiff. Also, Antonio Banderas is in this movie for I want to say 10 minutes. It's not terrible or anything, it's just kind of there. I can say that there was one scene I genuinely enjoyed, and it involved Adrian Brody's character telling a story about truffles. The Devil and Father Mort. Fuck you, William Friedkin! Just fuck you! This movie is an hour and 17 minutes long, and the entirety of it is just William Friedkin masturbating in your face about how he made The Exorcist. It portrays itself as a documentary about a real-life exorcism that could be interesting, but fuck me sideways if it isn't the most boring thing I've ever seen. Literally, the only interesting aspect is when they have medical professionals speaking to priests and clergymen about the link between demonic possession and mental illness. You can expect a Marcus Rambles video on this. Cowboy Bebop, the movie. This was special. I was fortunate enough to be able to go see this in theaters for the movie's anniversary. Seeing this on the big screen with my friends was just absolutely incredible. I really wish they made movies like this today. The aesthetic, the style, the passion, and the hard work on display, it makes my heart ache. One thing that surprised me about this was how Metal Gear it was. While watching it, I kept getting this vibe that this story could have taken place in the Metal Gear Solid universe. Very strange, but I'm also not complaining. The Commuter. Liam Neeson takes the train and then he has to kill someone on the train before they get off, but he doesn't know who he has to kill. It was okay. Standard Liam Neeson action movie. The thing I remember the most about it was that Patrick Wilson is in it for a bit, and so was Sam Neill, looking very macho with a thick Santa-esque beard. Much approved. Limitless. So, I had never actually seen this movie up until last year, and it was pretty cool. I like the idea of taking a drug that makes you super smart, and while I enjoyed the visual change between him on the drug and off the drug, I feel that visual touch was a bit much. Then again, it kind of helped make the movie stand out from the crowd, I feel. Visually, anyway. I only have one real question. Who killed the woman? Like, that never gets resolved, and it takes up a good chunk of the movie. Still, good flick. In the Line of Fire. Clint Eastwood plays an aging Secret Serviceman who meets his match when an assassin threatens the life of the President of the United States. I really like this movie. However, I find it fucking hilarious that even in 1993, Clint Eastwood was considered old. I don't think Clint Eastwood has ever been young. He's always been old. John Malkovich is great in this. He's kind of creepy, and his relationship with Clint Eastwood's character is an interesting one. Very cat and mouse. Devil's Gate. What the fuck is Devil's Gate? This is going to keep happening. Some of these I'm just not going to remember. Oh, fuck, it's this movie. This was weird. It has a weird cast. And I don't mean the characters, I mean the actors. It has Iceman from the X-Men, Peter Petrelli from Heroes, and Riker from Star Trek in it for a bit. Now that I remember what it is, I kinda liked this. It's a low-budget horror movie with an interesting idea. I'm not gonna spoil it because someone out there might actually get a kick out of this one. All I'm gonna say is, it does not go the way you think it is. The Titan. This was a cool idea executed poorly. A group of astronauts, soldiers, and scientists all sign up in order to undergo gene therapy in order to be the first inhabitants of a planet called Titan, in an effort to save humanity from destruction. The idea of turning yourself into a horrible monster in order to save humanity is an interesting one. One that I greatly enjoy as a concept, but unfortunately the movie doesn't really do anything with it. It's not really a horror movie. It's kind of a drama, which isn't a terrible approach. Seeing this guy's family having to adjust with him turning himself into a monster man in order to save them sounds like a good drama to me. I really have a beef with movies that do this and don't make the character look like a monster. He's just blue. Like, make him a monster. Wind River. I had heard some people talk about this, giving it pretty high praise, and I can see why. While I don't think the movie was amazing, it certainly had a lot of talent involved and certainly showcased some genuine skill. The music in particular I remember being very good, really haunting stuff. It's a murder mystery that has a seriously great ending. Seriously, the ending of this movie doesn't fuck around. Moon. Moon is delightful, and I mean that in the most genuine way. I'm noticing a trend. I really like movies that take place in one location with only a handful of actors. It helps that I really like Sam Rockwell. The whole movie takes place on a one-man space station located on the moon. It's a wonderfully done, simplistic but deep movie. The ending is kinda meh, but other than that, I highly recommend Moon. If you haven't already seen it, because this one came out a long time ago and got really popular. Hush. I've watched Hush a couple times now, and I still get a kick out of it. It's a thriller in which a woman who lives out in the woods is attacked by a psychopath. What's the catch? She's deaf and mute. It was genuinely entertaining seeing what is ultimately a game of cat and mouse between two people, one of which has a serious handicap. I can't remember the main character's name because I'm dumb, but she's easily one of my favorite recent movie heroines. Boy. This was cute. I loved this. I won't call it a good movie because it's kind of dumb, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. A kid gets chunks of cell phone embedded into his brain which gives him superpowers. No, seriously, that's the main plot of the movie. He becomes a technopath. It's great. I like seeing superhero movies with no licensed characters. I find them fascinating. Spotlight. This was alright. I don't know how much of this is genuine truth because you should almost never believe a movie when it says it's based on a true story. Especially horror movies. But I thought this was alright. Mark Ruffalo was pretty good in it. Michael Keaton was solid. Honestly, other than the fact that I can't really trust it, it's an alright movie. It focuses on the priest pedophile scandal from the early 2000s. My biggest gripe is that the movie just kind of ends. I don't know, watch the trailer and decide for yourself. Extinction. I had to Google this one, not because I couldn't remember it, but because I kept confusing it with Annihilation, which yes, I did watch. Extinction is kind of neat. I'm not going to spoil this one outright, because there's a bit more to it than what the trailer leads to, but suffice to say, I didn't see where this movie was going. So that's a plus. Basically, that guy from Ant-Man and Luke Cage tried and survive an alien invasion. That's a shitty description, I know, but believe me, it's better than that. I'd say check it out. It's not bad. You might actually like it. A Walk Among the Tombstones. Other than the fact that the name is fucking awesome, it has Liam Neeson in it, and I think it's based on a book, I can't remember a fucking thing about this movie. I know it's a detective noir thriller, but that's literally all I can remember. I don't even recall what the plot of the movie is. Sorry, Gone Girl. This movie scared the shit out of me. This bitch is the most terrifying individual to ever be portrayed on screen. I genuinely had trouble sleeping after watching this movie. It really fucked me up. Ben Affleck is great in this. Rosamund Pike was fucking incredible. If you haven't seen this movie, you really ought to. It's clever, it's well done, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and I feel so bad for Ben Affleck in this movie. Like, you have no idea. The scariest thing in the world is that I remember seeing people call Rosamund Pike's character a feminist hero? Did we watch the same fucking movie? Secret Window. I love this movie. It's kind of terrible, but I love it. Johnny Depp plays a writer who's being stalked by a man who claims Depp stole one of his books. Johnny Depp isn't particularly great in this. The real show stealer is John Turturro. He's a blast. His accent is gonzo.
Would you say that's true?
I suppose I would. I suppose that's why I came all the way up here from Mississippi.
I will say this, there's a particular moment in this movie that I find to be really well done, and it's when he finds the book that he's been looking for the entire movie, and the pages of his story are gone.
You cut it out. You son of a bitch. You cut it out of the magazine. Wait a minute. How would he do that? I don't know. But he did it. Think about it. How?
Johnny Depp's reaction is actually well delivered. I'd say watch it. It's not good, but I enjoy it despite that. The Foreigner. Jackie Chan is a miracle to all, and we don't deserve him. Honestly, the only real reason I was interested in this was because of Jackie Chan. You don't get to see Mr. Chan in overly serious roles all that often, which is a shame because I think he can actually act. Like, seriously, I think he has real acting capability. I'm not saying he gives the performance of his life in this, but what I am saying is he has some range. Most folks know him as the guy who's invincible in a ladder factory and makes funny faces. Here, he's honestly quite cold, bitter, and vengeful. Yes, Jackie Chan, vengeful. Enough said. To boldly flee. Fuck, 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 fuck. I only watched this because Jacob said we had to after watching Suburban Nights the year before. I have so many questions. A lot of them are why questions. There's too much in my mind to really pull it all out. I'm just gonna say this. It's 3.5 hours. Time I will never get back. Annihilation. Told you I watched this one. I get why this flopped. It's not really the kind of movie that should have been made by a big studio. This should have been a larger budget indie film because I genuinely found it to be wonderful. The ideas and concepts it explores are not really ever talked about in movies. It's not an action movie. It's not a thriller or a horror movie. It's really hard to say. It's obviously science fiction, but at the same time, it's just science fiction. Like, Star Wars is science fiction. But there's action, romance, large battles. Annihilation is just science fiction. I think it took massive nuts to do something like this, because chances are everyone involved knew it was going to flop financially. Which is a shame, because it's a great movie. Pandorum. Pandorum? More like Dead Space! I don't know why I watched this. I've seen it a couple times already, and it's alright. It ain't great. It's not terrible. It's a movie. Norman Reedus is in this movie for like 2 seconds, which caught me off guard. Bleach the movie. You're going to be fucking shocked when I say this, but I liked this. Don't get me wrong, it's not like good, but I enjoyed it far more than the Full Metal Alchemist movie. One thing that blew my mind is that they actually had Chad in this movie. Chad! The coolest Bleach character! This, of course, coming from a man who stopped watching Bleach after Rukia went back to the Soul Society. So, like, I don't know, what, 10 episodes? Funny enough, that's where the movie ends. Look at me, right? Krampus. This was quaint. It wasn't perfect, but it certainly is the best movie about Krampus. It has some really good practical effects, like the Jack-in-the-Box monster is really well done. And Krampus himself is great too. I greatly enjoyed the stop-motion segment. That was just wonderful. I would probably watch this again maybe around Christmas time. The Windmill. I remember this movie, but I don't remember anything about it. But at least I remember it. Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. This is the best Friday the 13th movie ever made. I'm not joking. Jason fights a psychic chick. She throws shit at him, lights him on fire, brings a house down on top of him. This movie's awesome! Venom. Now, Venom is not a great movie. However, considering the hands that were involved, it's honestly the best we're ever gonna get. And that being said, I found myself enjoying this. Yes, it could be better. But until that better Venom movie happens, which it won't, I'm happy with this. I like Tom Hardy. I think he was great in it. My only real complaint is that it was sort of hard to understand Venom some of the time. Other than that, I liked it. Maybe I'm dumb. I don't think I am. But I liked it for what it was. Inferno. Okay, so I watched the Dan Brown movies out of complete order, including Angels and Demons, but I didn't watch that last year, but I did watch it. Inferno was kind of boring. It's not a terrible movie, it's just bland. Which is a shame because it uses one of my favorite forms of inspiration, Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy, or Dante's Inferno. Given that it uses the Inferno heavily, it's named after the fucking thing, you would expect something a bit more? I don't know, maybe it's just me. So I watched Angels and Demons, Inferno, and then The Da Vinci Code. Keep that in mind. Apostle. Dan Stevens is very quickly becoming an actor who I will watch no matter what he's in, except for Downton Abbey. I don't think I will ever watch that. That being said, his performance in Apostle is great, and so is Apostle. A very good period piece cult horror movie. And I don't mean cult as in it has a small following, I mean the movie is about a cult. Which is interesting, you never really get to see movies about cults nowadays, and you almost never see period pieces about cults. That alone sets it apart from The Flock. Ah, see what I did there? Terrifier. Okay. I didn't like this. I know a lot of people got a kick out of this and thought it was spectacular, but I thought it was just alright. And even then, I don't think I'll ever watch it again. That being said, I think the guy playing the slasher in this movie, Terrifier is a slasher movie, is giving it his all. He is the best thing about this movie. His performance is just awesome, but I honestly can't recommend it. I Saw the Devil. I remember seeing trailers for this movie a long time ago and thinking it looked really interesting, but I never got around to seeing it. I am grateful that I did eventually watch it, but I also don't think it's as good as some say it is. It is good though. I do enjoy my revenge stories, and this is a pretty great one. It follows a detective who tracks down his wife's killer, and instead of killing him, he decides to make his life hell. The main character toes the line between justice and revenge, and by the movie's end, it's hard to look at him the same. The killer is played by Choi Min-sik, who you might recognize as the main character from Oldboy, and he's an absolute bastard in this movie. He's great. Bohemian Rhapsody. So, I really liked this. I know Bryan Singer is supposedly a huge creep, and that this movie isn't, absolutely accurate to the life of Freddie Mercury, which is a shame. But I can't ignore the fact that I did like this movie. I fucking love Queen. They're one of the greatest rock bands. You can't even pretend you've never heard a Queen song, because I think that's statistically impossible. And Rami Malek did a great job playing the role of Freddie Mercury. But Marcus, you might say, this movie's based on a true story, and you shouldn't trust those movies, you just said so. And you're right, doesn't mean I can't enjoy them. The Conjuring movies are based on true stories, and I really like those, so... yeah. The Da Vinci Code. So yes, I watched this series out of order, watching this one last, and I have to say, I'm stunned. Not only did the level of quality just drop after the first movie, but so did the main character's career. Not Tom Hanks, Robert Langdon. This guy starts out by finding the last living relative of Jesus Christ, which, holy shit, is a cool idea, not gonna lie. But then, his next two adventures are stopping a bomb and stopping a virus that will kill 90% of the world. I mean, the virus one is a big deal, sure, but you started so high. You found Jesus Christ's living descendant. How do you top that? Oh, you don't. Tickled. Funny enough, this is the only documentary on the list. I saw this being recommended on Reddit. It's on YouTube, and I guess it's free to watch. I would highly recommend you watch this. What starts as a journalist's discovery of an extreme endurance tickling league ends up going in such a completely opposite and dark direction that you have to see it to believe it. Easily one of the best movies I saw last year. Creed 2. I never saw Creed 1, which is interesting because I wasn't confused at all during this movie. Makes me wonder if I missed anything in Creed 1. Also, this movie is basically Rocky 4. That's a joke, but really it's kind of better than Rocky 4. And Rocky 4 is fucking awesome. I think it's better simply because of the character's connection to Rocky 4's events. Adonis Creed is going up against the son of the man who killed his father. It's honestly a solid movie, not perfect or amazing, but decent and enjoyable. Actually, I grew up watching the Rocky movies. My dad was really into boxing, martial arts, and weightlifting, so there was always either martial arts movies, Rocky movies, or Arnold Schwarzenegger movies on the TV. And watching this with him, I really got the feeling that he enjoyed it, which made me smile. Aquaman! I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Aquaman was awesome. I really got the impression that this was a cool kids movie. It reminded me of The Goonies. Not in terms of tone and style, but rather, it's an adventure movie that's not really afraid of being fantastical and kind of scary. I'm not describing this well. The costume work in this movie is honestly some of the best I've ever seen in a superhero movie in a very long time. Black Manta. Black Manta. Fuck me, that's just Black Manta. They literally ripped that son of a bitch out of a comic book. Beetleborg style. Patrick Wilson, who James Wan really has an affinity for, was great. I know people are shitting on this movie, they have that right, but come on! This is the coolest Aquaman has been in a long time. As far as I know, anyway. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Okay, I'm cheating with this one, I saw this in January, but fuck you, I want to talk about this. It was awesome! I want more Marvel movies like this! I want to see weird, strange, just off-the-walls insane animated Marvel superhero movies. This is the best looking animated movie I've seen that came out within recent history. Which blows my mind because it's done by the people who made the Emoji Movie. And it's handled by Sony Pictures. I don't know how it happened, but Sony finally released a good Spider-Man movie. Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir was the single most magnificent casting decision made in any movie ever. I have literally nothing negative to say about the movie. Spider-Man 2099 shows up. My boy Miguel is in this movie. And he is beautiful. I will never make another video like this. I promise, because it's probably terrible. But if you made it this far and enjoyed it, more power to you. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all had a great day. And stay safe. See you next time.